The criminal underworld has one simple rule: don't get caught. But these geniuses couldn't even manage that. This isn't just crime, it's self-destruction in real time. No planning, no instincts, no escape. Just 12 people who practically arrested themselves. Sometimes, the justice system doesn't have to do anything, because the criminals do it for them. Welcome to the Hall of Fame of legal self-annihilation, where bad decisions meet immediate consequences. 1. The ventilation cycle. A man who had robbed a commercial premises was being pursued on foot through an industrial district at around 2 in the morning. He had covered several blocks before his instincts shifted from running to hiding. Running depletes you and keeps you visible. Hiding solves both problems at once. In theory, he found a large industrial building set back from the main road, with a window reachable from a drainage pipe on the exterior wall. He climbed through, moved into a storage area, shelving, industrial containers, enough shadow, and settled in to wait. What he had not done was read the signage on the exterior, not the safety certification near the entrance, not the chemical hazard classification near the loading bay, and not, most critically, the laminated operational notice attached to the window frame 2 inches from where his hands had gripped the sill. That notice explained the building was a chemical storage and processing facility. It explained the ventilation systems operated on a timed cycle. It explained that human presence during certain phases was not recommended. It specified atmospheric conditions during the stabilization phase. The notice was clearly printed in large font. He had been close enough to read it while climbing through. Officers searched the area for over an hour without finding him. A facility worker arriving for the early shift 2 hours later noticed the forced entry and reported it. Investigators were dispatched. They found him inside, still in the position he had chosen. The ventilation cycle had completed its active phase shortly after he entered. The atmospheric conditions in the storage area then did precisely what the exterior signage said they would do to an unprotected person during the stabilization window. The robbery proceeds were on his person. He had not moved. The facility filed an incident report. The safety violation was attributed to unauthorized entry. The signage was reviewed and found fully compliant. The only gap the investigation identified was one that no posted warning, regardless of size or placement, can fully close. 2. The ink roller. The counterfeiting operation had been running for 4 months. 4 months of working inside that outbuilding, operating industrial equipment he had researched online and considered himself prepared for. 4 months without incident had reinforced that belief. It shouldn't have. The press was a commercial-grade unit, older model, acquired privately and assembled by him from instructional videos he had watched multiple times. He understood the mechanics at a functional level: loading, alignment, output. What the videos had not conveyed was that older press models required manual ink roller adjustment during operation. Modern equipment requires a full shutdown before any contact with moving components. The older model did not. That adjustment was designed to be performed using a specific tool built to keep hands safely away from the mechanism while the press was running. He did not have the tool. He had improvised before using a substitute that had worked well enough. It worked well enough until it didn't. Industrial presses at full operational speed generate forces that human reaction time cannot interrupt once contact is made. The mechanism does not pause. It does not register that something has gone wrong. It continues because that is what it is built to do. His operation was not discovered for several days. The outbuilding was remote, with no reason for anyone to approach. When investigators located it following an unrelated inquiry, they found the press powered down from its last cycle, counterfeit materials across the work surfaces, and evidence in the middle of the room that required no forensic interpretation. The materials were cataloged and destroyed. 4 months of production, no distribution established, nothing passed to anyone. The press was impounded and later sold at auction to a legitimate printing business. The technician noted the roller mechanism showed signs of operational irregularity but was otherwise fully functional. 3. The missing floor. 14 hours is a workable amount of time to remove documentation, provided the route to those documents is the one you believe it to be. He had run the financial fraud operation long enough that the office was familiar territory. He knew the fire escape well, used it for smoking breaks regularly, often enough that the route felt automatic. It gave access bypassing the building's keycard system. A 2 in the morning log entry the night before a warrant was executed would itself have been evidence. The fire escape, he believed, gave him none of that exposure. What he hadn't accounted for was geometry and darkness. The fire escape he used for smoking, approached from street level at speed in the dark, looked identical to the fire escape on the adjacent building, because it was on an identical building. Both structures shared the same alley, built to the same specification. In daylight, the distinction was obvious. In darkness, moving fast, with 14 hours of pressure narrowing his attention, he climbed the wrong exterior. He counted floors as he went, reached what he counted as the fourth floor equivalent, forced the window, stepped through. The building was under active renovation. The interior floor plan on that level had been partially removed as part of the structural works. The section he stepped onto was not load-bearing in its current state. It did not hold. His actual office in the correct building 50 meters away was untouched. Investigators arrived the following morning with their warrant, worked through his documentation, and noted his absence. The initial assumption was flight. The renovation crew found him during their morning shift. The documents seized formed the complete basis of a prosecution that proceeded without him. The case summary noted the irony directly. His attempt to reach the evidence had ensured it was intact for investigators to collect in the morning. The only thing between the documents and the warrant had been him. He had removed himself. If you're enjoying this, hit like and subscribe right now. 9 more cases in this vault and none of them get any smarter. Keep watching. 4. The remote lock. He had done the research. Property layout confirmed. Occupancy schedule verified. Entry point identified. Alarm panel model found. Bypass method understood. He had confirmed twice that the occupants were absent during his planned window. This was a prepared operation. He was not walking in blind. He had missed one system. The homeowners had upgraded their security 3 weeks earlier. The new smart hub ran on an entirely separate circuit from the main alarm panel, not networked to it, not affected by bypassing it. It included remote door locking, secondary motion sensors, and real-time phone notifications. None of it existed at the time of his research. It had been installed after his research window closed. He bypassed the alarm panel as planned. The hub was unaffected. 14 seconds later, a secondary sensor triggered and sent a notification to a phone on a restaurant table 12 kilometers away. The homeowner opened the hub interface, saw the alert, saw the button. He pressed it. Every external door locked simultaneously via frame-integrated mechanisms that could not be reversed from inside without the digital key. He finished his dinner. The thief moved to leave. Every door was locked in a way he could not defeat from inside. He broke a window. That triggered another sensor. The homeowner, already on the phone to police, passed that detail along. Officers arrived to find him inside, in possession of everything he came for, with no functional exit remaining. He did not survive custody. A pre-existing condition produced a fatal medical emergency on the second night. The homeowner returned home to find the situation resolved. He described it to officers as surreal. An alert mid-dinner, one button pressed, a meal finished, blue lights on arrival. First operational use of the remote lock outside of installation testing. 3 weeks old, worked exactly as advertised. 5. The formal complaint. He filed the complaint because he believed he had grounds for one. The arrest had been for a minor matter. The handling had been imperfect in at least one procedural detail. The formal complaint process exists precisely for situations like this. He used it correctly. His submission was organized, chronological, specific, and included supporting context to explain why his behavior during the encounter had appeared as it had. The problem was the supporting context. He wanted the oversight body to understand why he had acted as he had during the arrest. To establish that, he needed to describe what he had been doing beforehand. He described it, fully, clearly, in writing, on a signed document submitted to an official oversight body. What he had been doing before the arrest constituted a course of conduct substantially more serious than the minor matter he had been detained for. He included it because it served his explanatory purpose. He apparently did not recognize at any point while writing, reviewing, or submitting the document that it was simultaneously self-incriminating. Oversight bodies operate under mandatory procedural requirements. When a complaint contains information suggesting additional criminal conduct, that information must be forwarded to investigators. This is not discretionary. It is a standing procedural requirement applied uniformly. His submission was handled correctly. The relevant sections were forwarded. The investigation that followed was brief. The initial account had been provided by him, in writing, already formally received and signed. Investigators followed a trail he had laid himself, to a destination he had described in his own words. He was charged on the additional matters. His original complaint was not substantiated. He did not survive to see the new charges resolved. A health event during the legal process produced a fatal outcome. His complaint remained in the official record, both sides of it, preserved together in the same file. The oversight body noted in their annual review that the process had, in this instance, functioned with an efficiency that was difficult to improve upon. 6. The parking lot view. The fire was developing as planned. He confirmed that from a car park across the street, a pharmacy lot with a unobstructed view of the commercial property he had set alight 40 minutes earlier. The plan had been to stay 5 minutes, confirm it was catching, leave. He stayed for nearly 3 hours. Fire investigators are specifically trained to look for individuals near active scenes because perpetrators return consistently. The psychological pull is real. Leaving means missing confirmation. And once it is clearly working, 5 minutes becomes 30, becomes watching the fire department arrive, becomes nearly 3 hours on pharmacy security footage, capturing him before the first engine reached the scene. A fire investigator working the perimeter identified 3 individuals in that car park through the pharmacy's external camera feed. Standard witness inquiry. 2 of them checked out. The third man's account had problems. His timeline didn't hold. His reason for still being there, waiting for a friend, wasn't supported by any communication on his phone. His location data during the ignition window placed him at a position inconsistent with his account. He had been connected to the scene through footage and location data on the same evening the crime occurred. He had watched his fire develop and been interviewed about it while still standing in the car park where he had been watching. He did not survive to face trial. An unmanaged cardiac condition produced a fatal event during the investigation period. His insurance claim, filed the following morning, was denied. The property's assessed value was found to be significantly inflated. A discrepancy fraud investigators had flagged before the arson finding was confirmed. The fire investigation concluded deliberate ignition with an origin inconsistent with the electrical fault cited in the claim. Both case files told the same story. 7. The second floor. Document forgery is a confidence exercise. The document doesn't need to be perfect. It needs to be submitted somewhere the reviewers are not positioned to challenge it. That is the entire architecture. Change the submission context and the exercise inverts. What was a deception becomes a demonstration. He submitted his forged authorization document in person at the front desk of a processing office, in a building that also housed the Regional Financial Crimes Investigation Unit on the floor directly above him. The building was publicly listed. The unit was publicly listed. They shared administrative infrastructure, including a document routing system that automatically escalated certain submission categories upstairs for secondary review. A minimal amount of preparation would have identified this. He had not identified it. He presented the forged document at intake. The clerk processed it according to standard procedure. Authorization documentation for asset transfer was one of the categories that triggered automatic routing upstairs, not a discretionary decision, a procedural requirement. His document went upstairs while he sat in reception, waiting for his acknowledgement slip. Investigators reviewed it upstairs. The forgery was workable for a general-purpose submission. It was not workable for professionals who examine forged financial documents daily. The review did not take long. An investigator came downstairs personally. The conversation in reception was brief. He was detained in the same chairs where he had been waiting. He had submitted a forged document at the front desk of the building that houses the unit that investigates forged documents, waited calmly while they reviewed it upstairs, and been arrested by someone who walked 60 steps to reach him. He did not survive the investigation period. An undisclosed health condition produced a fatal outcome before trial. The document was preserved as a training exhibit and included in the unit's annual review under a description they considered precise, a submission that resolved itself before investigators were required to do meaningful work. 5 more to go. Subscribe and like right now. What's coming next is worth staying for. Don't miss it. 8. The bar conversation. The planning was real. That is the detail that makes this case what it is. Not a failure of preparation, but a failure of discretion so complete that it erased everything the preparation had built. He had done the reconnaissance properly. 2 commercial properties identified, both visited during business hours under ordinary pretexts. Weakest access points assessed and confirmed. Timing structured for both in the same week, close enough to compress the investigation gap between them. That is a logical operational instinct. He had thought this through. Then he sat down at a bar and described the entire plan out loud to the person next to him. Not vaguely, specifically. He named the street. He described both properties. He identified the access vulnerabilities in each. He stated the exact night he planned to go to the first. He was relaxed, in a conversational mood. He shared it the way someone shares a project they are satisfied with. 3 people overheard the conversation. 2 contacted police, one while still seated at the bar, 3 positions away before he had finished his drink. Both described the same street, the same properties, the same timeline. Officers established observation on the first property that same evening. He arrived as planned on the night he had described. Officers moved to intercept. He ran. His route through the district took him through a construction zone where a permit issue had left an excavation open without its standard safety barriers. It was very dark. He was moving fast. He did not see it. The construction company was cited for the unsecured excavation and paid the associated fine. His case was closed concurrently. Both properties were later confirmed by their owners to have the exact access vulnerabilities he had identified at the bar. Both were addressed within the following month. His reconnaissance had been accurate and correct. Shared aloud over a drink, it improved the security of the properties he had intended to rob. 9. The tutorial video. He had made a specific decision about framing. He called it promotional. The video presented a financial methodology in step-by-step instructional format, the kind of content that performs well on major platforms. He filmed it at home, edited it, and uploaded it publicly. His assumption, the language he used was vague enough to be legally safe. A financial crimes investigator in a different city watched it for an unrelated reason. Cross-referencing methodology variants in a case already under investigation elsewhere, he recognized the structure immediately. Not generally, specifically. Account sequencing, transfer timing, intermediary mechanism. The variant he had been working for months had operational signatures he knew precisely. This video matched them with a precision he later described as immediately actionable. 1 viewing. That was enough. Identification was straightforward. Account subpoenas followed. Transaction records matched the on-camera description with the accuracy that occurs naturally when the person explaining the system is the person who built and ran it. He had filmed his own methodology, edited it for presentation, and distributed it to over 400 viewers before it was flagged for removal. He did not survive to see the case conclude. An unaddressed health condition produced a fatal outcome during the investigation period. The video was preserved as evidence in full before any removal was processed. Platform records showed most of the 400-plus views had generated comments describing the content as creative and well-structured. Nobody in the comments had identified what they were actually watching. 1 viewing produced consequences. The investigator had been in the right specialty, watching for the right reason, on the right day. 400 people had seen a tutorial. He had seen a prosecution. The difference was not in the video. It was entirely in the viewer. 10. The 5th visit. The incremental retrieval plan was, on its own terms, a reasonable decision. Moving a significant quantity of stolen goods in a single journey creates identifiable risks. Vehicle weight, loading time, a single large movement that can be connected to the theft by timing. Smaller increments over several days using a modest vehicle reduces each of those risks individually. On paper, this was better thinking than a single run. The flaw was in what the plan required, but had not accounted for. Any operation needing repeated returns to the same location at consistent intervals is not a plan. It is a schedule. And schedules, once identified, eliminate all uncertainty about where a person will be and when. Investigators pulling CCTV from the facility perimeter identified the exit direction on day 1. A foot search located the hidden cache on day 2. Officers made a standard decision: leave everything in place, establish observation, and wait. He arrived on day 3. Officers documented the visit without intervening. Goods collected, vehicle loaded, same route out. Day 4, same time, same vehicle, same route. Documented again without contact. Day 5. Officers were not at observation distance. They were at the collection point, waiting. He arrived at the same time, in the same vehicle, by the same route. The officer's report noted it was one of the few cases in his career where the arrest time had been accurately predicted 4 days in advance. He did not survive to see the case reach court. An underlying condition produced a fatal medical event during the pre-trial period. The stolen goods were fully recovered. Each visit had been documented and the goods resecured afterward, so the complete inventory was intact. The plan had reduced the risk of each individual action. It had not reduced the risk created by the pattern those actions formed together. That pattern had made the outcome entirely predictable. Made it to case 10 and still watching? Good. The last two are worth it. Drop a comment right now with your favorite case so far, and subscribe if you haven't yet. You don't want to miss what's left. 11. The sealed compartment. The compartment had been professionally installed, fabricated work, hidden within the vehicle's existing structure, finished to a standard design to survive inspection. He had paid for that quality and had reason to expect it would hold. What neither he nor the installer appeared to have tested was what that seal did under sustained highway driving. Extended travel at speed created pressure changes within the vehicle, temperature differentials across the chassis, airflow dynamics, the sustained mechanical behavior of hours on open road that worked progressively against a seal not rated for those conditions. The degradation was gradual. At shorter distances, it would have held. At 4 hours of continuous driving, the compartment had been venting its contents into the vehicle's air circulation system for long enough to matter. The vehicle had been flagged in an enforcement database 6 months earlier, following a separate inquiry that produced no charges. The flag didn't mean surveillance. It meant any checkpoint scan would return a recommendation for secondary inspection. He apparently either didn't know or calculated it was manageable. He drove through the checkpoint. The scan returned the flag. He was directed to secondary inspection. Officers found the concealed compartment within 20 minutes. What they didn't yet know was that the exposure had not started at the checkpoint. It had been happening for the entire 4-hour journey. His condition during inspection prompted immediate medical support. He was transported to a facility. He did not recover. The installer was identified through the fabrication method 3 weeks later. The same work had been used in multiple vehicles. 2 other couriers were identified through the same investigation. Neither had been exposed the same way. Their journeys had been shorter. The seal hadn't degraded far enough. Distance was the only variable separating their outcomes from his. 12. The amended form. He had submitted the original documentation in general terms. A deliberate calculation. Vague language is defensible. Specific language creates exposure. The cargo was described accurately enough to pass initial review. He had been through this checkpoint before. He understood the process at the level required for it to run smoothly. It ran smoothly until the secondary inspection officer noticed a discrepancy between the declared and actual weight of the cargo. Not marginal, the kind of difference suggesting the declaration does not describe what is actually being transported. The officer asked him to account for it. He asked whether he could amend the manifest. The officer said yes, standard procedure. A corrected declaration is a routine mechanism offered as a good faith opportunity to address documentation errors. The expected responses from someone in his position are predictable. A corrected weight figure, a request for legal counsel, a denial, a request for more time. The officer had seen all of these. He took the corrected manifest form. He completed it. He described the cargo in full, actual weight, actual contents, complete itemization, including everything that was not legal to transport. In the same document, same handwriting, with his identifying information attached. He handed it back across the counter. The officer, by his own account, was briefly uncertain whether what he held was what he thought it was. He processed it according to procedure. The document functioned simultaneously as an amended customs declaration and a self-generated evidence document. Both functions applied the moment it was received. The cargo matched the corrected manifest precisely. He was detained. A medical condition that had been progressing without treatment reached a critical stage. He was transferred to a facility. He did not recover. The corrected manifest was the most accurate document in the case file, and the only one completed by the defendant, voluntarily, after being given the option to say nothing at all. 12 cases. 12 people who had every warning sign in front of them, and still chose wrong. No complex investigations, no brilliant detectives. Just mistakes they created, walked into, or handed over themselves. That's the real lesson. The most dangerous part of any bad plan is the person making it. So whatever you're planning, read the signs, double-check your moves, and don't be your own downfall. If you enjoyed this, hit like, drop a comment with your favorite case, and subscribe to Blunder Vault for new vaults.